R4 and S14. If you're in Australia, you've likely seen these before. These are made by Rex Kelway, and he makes, in my opinion, the best looking ready to weld in tubs that you can buy. Unfortunately, he doesn't make these for R chassis. He does, however, make these for S chassis. And after talking to him for a little bit, he's reassured me that the S14, S15 tub will be the easiest to fit to the 33. And as you can see, after some massaging with an air saw and a whole bunch of sanding, I've managed to get it to work. With this side done, I'll run through the why and the how on this side. So obviously there is a huge visual benefit, but the tubs also have a practical element. As you can see with this side-by-side comparison, they provide a much larger clearance between the wheel, which is sometimes necessary when running a bigger wheel, tire, and steering angle setup. First up, I'm going to go around and mark out a rough cut line where the tub meets the A-frame, the tower, and the chassis rail, and then I'm just going to be leaving myself a little ledge at the front here as a height reference that I can rest the new tub on and make sure that I weld it in at the correct height. With the old tub out and the surface prepped, it's time to start trimming up the new tub to go in its place. Like I said, these are R4 and S14, not a 33, so we have to do a fair bit of trimming to get them to fit, but luckily I've already done one side, so I can use this side as a little bit of a template for this side. Something to note if you're trying to fit these to a 33, I found it a lot easier to just cut this piece out along the edges, make the rest of the tub fit the car, and then weld this piece in last. That way you can also make this backside fit around the upper control arm nut on the tower. After a bunch of trimming, fitting, and re-trimming, I've got the tub fitting pretty nicely. Plan of attack for welding these in is to use a stitch welding style method that you would do on a unibody car like this between all the joining panels, and run a row of welds, a gap, a row of welds, a gap, and so on around the whole tub. I don't think it's necessary to run a giant bead around the whole tub. Considering from factory the OE tubs are only held in by maybe 20 to 30, maybe a few more spot welds. This method should be just as many, if not more, points of contact, therefore being plenty strong enough. We're 90% of the way there. I've got the main piece of the tub welded in, trimmed up and tacked into place this side piece here for these two seams here. I'm going to be welding them fully around on both sides. That way afterwards I can sand it down and make it look seamless. This last little bit's going to take a while. I've got to be careful not to put too much heat into the panels and warp them. I'm going to throw up a time lapse, weld this out, and then we'll get to the final product. The next morning, the tubs are in and the bay is prepped and ready for paint. I think the new tubs look phenomenal, so much better than the stock tubs, and I'm especially happy with my efforts sanding down all my welds on these two edges and getting it looking seamless as if I never cut this side piece out. Blended the face of the tub into the taper of the tower, finished it off with a little bit of body filler just to make it level, and then finished off these edges where the tub meets the tower with some seam sealer just to prevent any dirt, debris, or moisture getting in and possibly causing rust in the future. Anyone who owns a Nissan from this era knows it's incredibly common for them to start rusting between two joining panels, and unfortunately my car has also suffered this fate. It's pretty well known by now that the R33 and R34 chassis suffer pretty badly from strut tower rust. The proper way to fix this would be replace the tower assembly entirely. However, I don't have the time or budget to do so at the moment. What I can do though is strip back the factory sealer and treat the rust that I can see with a heavy duty inhibitor like Dioxidine. This will prevent the rust that is there from spreading and also stop any new spots of rust forming. After the rust was treated, I then ran a neat tape edge along all the joins as a guide for some fresh, high quality seam sealer. We've got a pretty heavy coat of etch primer down on the bay, and while that tacks off, before we jump into high build primer, I want to move on to tackling the body kit. I've already got the kit fitted up, most of the prep work done, but I've just left this little corner here to showcase how I'm going to be prepping the fiberglass before paint. Essentially what I've done is spray a contrast color guide coat over the bright white to make it super easy to identify low spots throughout the fiberglass. Then using a flat block with some sandpaper, starting to sand away the guide coat, it easily shows the low spots spots by the guide coat that's left behind. All these little low spots throughout the fiberglass that gives that wavy fiberglass look that I'm definitely not a fan of. But it's a simple fix. All I got to do is keep sanding away until the high spots match the same level as the low spots, and this will be shown by the guide coat in all the low spots coming off and then the entire thing being fiberglass white. Now, unfortunately, I've lost the footage of me sanding everything down, but hopefully I explained everything well enough and you get the idea. That being said, once the kit was blocked back and I was satisfied enough with the finish, I cleaned everything off, mixed up some high build primer and got to spraying a nice thick couple of coats on both the body kit and the engine bay. Everything is in high build primer and ready to be sanded. Had a couple little touch-ups I did last night along the edges where the tub meets the tower, and then sprayed some etched primer over any rub-throughs. With that all done, it's time to sand down this high build and get it ready for white undercoat. Got the white undercoat down. All we gotta do is sand and then paint in the morning. It is a fresh day. You'll have to excuse the eye patch. I am fresh out of eye surgery, but I can finally say after so many hours cutting, welding, prepping, sanding, and painting, we finally have a completed engine bay, and I am so stoked with the outcome. Now that it's painted, you can see just how seamless the edges look and how nice and tidy it is in the corner where it meets the tub and blends into that taper in the tower. It's as close as I could get it to the upper control arm nuts. I am super stoked with the fitment of it. I definitely learned a lot doing this. I am not a fabricator by any means, and not to toot my own horn too much, but I am pretty stoked with this. I think I did a pretty good job. But let me know what you think in the comments if you like the tubs or not. And with that all said and done, before we jump into assembling the front end again and getting this thing rolling, there's a couple things I want to do just to future-proof the chassis a little bit. Like I mentioned before, it's extremely common for these cars to suffer with rust issues between the panel joins, and this is sadly due to the manufacturer being a little bit stingy when it came to applying seam sealer. As you can see, a large majority of the stacked panels around the wheel area have little to no seam sealer at all, and not to mention these cars are now around 25 to 30 years old, so it's probably about time for a refresh anyway. After stripping everything back to bare metal and getting rid of any surface rust I found, I seam sealed all the panel joins before etching all the bare metal in preparation for some fresh and durable underbody coating. Obviously we don't want to leave it in etch, so I picked up some of this Sicker underbody coating from my local paint store. Originally I was going to go with a big name brand like Raptorliner, but I ended up picking this stuff up for about 1/5 the price. I'm not quite sure if it'll be as durable as Raptorliner, but I figured worst case I'm going to have a bunch of spare cans left over for any potential touch-ups I need to make in the future. With the engine bay freshly painted and everything looking as good as it does, I thought it would be an absolute shame to throw back in the subframe and all the suspension components looking as crusty as they did. So before putting it all back in, I took everything out on my back patio and gave it a power wash before giving it the good old rattle can restoration. A few hours later, everything is dry and ready to go in the car. I also painted up the little bolt bracket. I definitely would have preferred to powder coat everything, but it is the 18th of December, super close to Christmas, everyone's closing. Inevitably, when I change something in the future, I can powder coat it later. Unfortunately, because I let this car sit for a little while after I painted it in various garages, it's picked up a bunch of metal dust and contaminants in the paint, but it's nothing a quick clay bar session couldn't fix. Excuse the red and inflamed eye, I'm still sort of fresh out of surgery, but we clay barred the entire car, got the front guards and front bar on off camera, so now I'm just going to throw on front wheels, push this thing back and get the rest of the kit on the car, get this thing finally looking like a sweet car again. The car officially rolls again and it's looking pretty sweet with most of a front end together, and the icing on the cake is going to be these near new condition Series 2 R33 headlights with not a single crack and not a single broken tab. Finally, after so many years, the Skyline finally has a face again. The new headlights look amazing, and I mean, GTR bar, you just can't go wrong. Now, I don't have my bonnet or grille here, so we're gonna move on to the next piece of the body kit, which is the smallest piece, but arguably makes the biggest difference. Goofy looking body, ready? Side skirts do so much for a car. Don't get me wrong, I love 33s, but they look so stupid without good side skirts. And these, obviously, are my favorite, hence why I got them. Went ahead and mounted the other side off camera, and now it's got front bar, skirts, headlights. It's time to move on to the rear bar. When it comes to mounting body kits, personally, I'm a big fan of doing so as solidly as possible rather than just throwing a couple zip ties on and hoping for the best. I'd much rather it break on the car and stay on the car instead of coming flying off. So to make sure it's mounted as solidly as possible, I'm going to be using the factory little bracket that sandwiches the rear bar up into the rear quarter, and then I'll finish off the ends with some screws into the factory little screw grommets. The fitment's not the best, but the rear bar is very solidly on, mounted in all the factory locations. This thing looks f***ing sick. Now all that's left to do is mount up the tail lights and center garnish, but I'm gonna do the old... Got a booty again, tail lights, center garnish, and rear bar are official. Fully kitted up. I just got a couple of little things left, like this door handle, some exterior trims and things like that. So I'm just gonna put together a little montage of the last little things, buttoning the car up, wait for the sun to go down a little bit. We'll tow the car up out on the street and get some sweet B-roll shots of the mostly finished look. Real good at this motion, much better. All right, we buttoned up the Skyline with all the little badges and trims, etc. I would say, like, obviously besides the bonnet, probably like 95% complete aesthetically, and obviously glass. Glass is booked in for the 7th of January. I'm gonna hook the Beamer up to the back, tow it up my driveway, and there's a sweet little photo spot sort of down the end of my street. Get some sweet B-roll and some sweet photos and just take it all in, because it's been a long time since this car's looked this good. All right, I didn't film pulling it out of the garage because there was a little bit going on. There's only 2 of us. It looks so good. It's so good seeing it out of the garage for the first time in forever. Take a look. Still got a couple of little things to button up that I'm going to do off camera, like finish up the interior, but it is mostly complete. I am absolutely stoked with the way this car looks, especially the engine bay. I think the tubs look phenomenal, definitely worth the effort. Let me know what you guys think of the look of the car, if you like the kit and the tubs, etc. I think it looks gangster. Click on the screen here if you want to watch me build the engine for this car, and stay tuned for the next episode where the engine actually goes in. We get it almost ready to run. Thank you so much for watching. Throw a like on the video, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one. This is the furthest I've driven my car in a long time.
Hey yo, chill, man. Why don't you